Greetings, fellow scribes! Welcome back to the archive! This week, I continue my series on the history of BattleTech by talking about that thing the Word of Blake did. Because the in-universe name is something that might offend people today, it's a word beginning with J and meaning a holy war. I'm not going to actually refer to it by its in-universe name. But, that said, it was broken into two parts, really. A covert stage and an overt stage. So this week, we're talking about the covert stage, when only a handful knew what was actually going on, or suspected what was going on. So sit back, relax, and enjoy as we talk about when the Word of Blake gets really, really angry over the Star League dissolving again. So, this part of BattleTech history has one single event that's viewed as the kickoff. But it's a little bit more complicated than that. So, you remember back in 3058 when the Word of Blake took Terra from Comstar? One of the things that they did to be put on the Star League Council is they declared the area 2 jumps around Terra as the Word of Blake Protectorate. Now, this particular area encompassed the Chaos March, and a number of worlds the other houses kinda didn't really have the best history with. Worlds that were always sort of fractious with them, etc., etc. So, most of them just accepted it. The Capellan Confederation, they were kind of still in the middle of resculpting themselves and fighting St. Ives. And, well, when Sun Tzu looks at the Word of Blake, what they have, he knows he doesn't have the resources to fight them. So, he lets it go. Davian, same thing, really. You know, all the houses right around there kind of let it go for a couple reasons. First off, it gives them a buffer zone against the potential enemies on the other side of Terra. And just, it's a simple expedient. And also, Word of Blake holds Terra. So that means if the clans decide to break the treaty, the Word of Blake get beaten down. Not any of them. But the Word of Blake had some actual plans. The Word of Blake wanted to utterly and completely destroy the clans. So, they started doing preparations. Now, one of these things came sort of just ahead of the Third Winning Conference. What the Word of Blake called the Third Transfer. And this particular event happened on the world of Outreach. Outreach was the world owned wholesale by the Wolf's Dragoons. It was a hiring hall world for mercenaries. It was where down on their luck mercenaries would show up to try and get contracts. And just overall, it was an important world just because of how everyone used mercenaries in the Inner Sphere. Everyone used mercenaries. Because mercenaries could be deniable assets, they could be hired as corporate guards, or they could be used to bolster your troops in a major military action. Sending people who aren't part of your military, so you don't really have to pay as much if they get killed or whatnot. But Outreach was owned, operated, everything, wholesale, by the Wolf's Dragoons. And the Word of Blake kind of didn't like the Wolf's Dragoons. Partly for their clan origin, partly for the fact that they kind of helped do stuff against Operation Holy Shroud, and partly because WolfNet was the only intelligence agency in the Inner Sphere that they hadn't been able to infiltrate. And WolfNet was amazingly competent. Like, it literally could get information out of Word of Blake or Comstar facilities, is how good they were. So, the Word of Blake decided they had to do something about this. And what starts as a mercenary uprising, led by Colonel Wayne Waco of Waco's Rangers. See, Waco had a personal grudge against the commander of Wolf's Dragoons, Jamie Wolf. And so, when all was said and done, in the middle of this fighting, Colonel Waco and Jamie Wolf end up facing against each other. Jamie Wolf and his archer, Waco and his battlemaster. I should say, Jamie Wolf and his Clan Tech refit archer versus Waco in an Inner Sphere battlemaster. And they kill each other. Like, literally, it's a Simo death. Waco punches in Jamie Wolf's cockpit. At the same time, Wolf shears the head off Waco's neck. And this sets something in motion on Outreach. A single broadcast from the second in command of Jamie Wolf's command lance. Wolf Actual is down. I repeat, Wolf Actual is down. Set condition feral. What condition feral was is a conditioned response in the Dragoons. Because every bit of fiction I've read on this, how the Dragoons reacted is like a switch was flipped. There was no thinking precisely on their part other than the best tactics. And any mech that came across, any forces they came across that was not Wolf's Dragoons, was either shut down or it was killed with extreme prejudice. There were instances where the Wolf Scout, where the Scout Battalion of the Wolf's Dragoons were climbing over mechs, pulling the warriors out and killing them in the street. This destroyed a number of mercenary units. And it ended the revolt. And then the Dragoons started setting up what would later be the Allied Mercenary Command. And there was a unit that was fighting alongside them, the Broadsword Legion. And this unit was setting up with perimeter guards. And something happened. Over the center of Harlech City, a mushroom cloud rose. A very distinctive mushroom cloud. And the Broadsword Legion turned on the Dragoons that they were helping. Because it turned out the Broadsword Legion was not an actual mercenary unit. They were all operatives of the Word of Blake. But back to the main event, which was Outreach, by the way, is considered to be the start of this whole story arc. The first deployment of a nuclear weapon. The first near destruction of a major faction by the Word of Blake. Now, there was a couple regiments off planet, and they knew the Word of Blake was responsible. But before we go talk with what happens there, we need to talk with the actual start of things. You see, the Word of Blake was preparing to gift the Star League a super army with one purpose and one purpose only: to destroy the clans. And the third winning conference came, and it ended in a vote of no confidence and the dissolution of the Star League. And the Word of Blake flipped. There were massive attacks on the capitals of every single Inner Sphere power. Now, they all looked like they came from someone else. But intelligence would eventually figure out they were all done by the Word of Blake. And while that was going on, the Wolf's Dragoons, the survivors of the Wolf's Dragoons, formed the Allied Mercenary Command. Officially formed the Allied Mercenary Command. And launch a strike. This strike is several regiments of mercenary factions. Some of the best. Kellhounds, Hansen's Rough Riders, a whole bunch of big names. And they go and attack the Word of Blake stronghold on Mars. Because Wolfnet was able to find that the Order came from Mars. Every unit, every mech warrior that landed on Mars died. The Word of Blake slaughtered them all. These would be the first encounters with what the Word of Blake was going to gift the Star League. The man they dominate. But no one survived to tell the story. So no one knew about them for 2 years. Meanwhile, we have what follows, where people start dealing with the Word of Blake without knowing it's the Word of Blake. You had the surviving commanders of the Allied Mercenary Command who knew what was going on and were trying to convince people. But no one wanted to listen because they were dealing with their own situations. The Black Dragon Society had reared its head again in the Draconis Combine, and there was fighting going on there. The Jade Falcons had something happen that started them attacking into the Lyran Alliance. And Lyran Commonwealth. And so you have all this stuff happening. You've got right now the Free Worlds League is relatively safe, except for a number of instances where certain units are getting attacked by things they don't know what they are. Capellan Confederation, it's actually still... It's caught because a false flag operation caused the Capellan Confederation to start attacking Davian. And you have all this going on. And you have just all this stuff going on. And the Word of Blake is working in it. There's a certain Muslim majority group in the Draconis Combine. Their military is called the Arcab Legions. And they were in a revolt against the Draconis Combine at the same time that the Black Dragon Society was rearing its head. And the Ghost Bears somehow started attacking the Combine again. For some reason. And all this is happening. And somewhere in this fighting, the Combine forces that are fighting the Arcab Legions launch a nuke. And there are small skirmishes going on all around the Inner Sphere, and suddenly nukes get deployed. The Knights of the Inner Sphere are doing a great parade on the capital of the Free Worlds League, Atreus. And Nerve Agent gets released because they weren't prepared for biological warfare in their home city. The filters on their mechs weren't prepared for it. And almost the entire Knights of the Inner Sphere died. And you have this sort of stuff going around. The Word of Blake isn't acting overtly, but people are realizing what's going on. They're piecing it together. One of these people is a cousin to the coordinator. I'm not going to say his full name because I will likely butcher it. He was called Uncle Chandy. And yes, he was a Kurita. But the big thing to remember with him is he was a Kurita, but he had a sizable financial empire. He traded everywhere in the Inner Sphere. He might have used that to get intelligence so he can use. But he also liked trading. He liked making money. And he had a sizable fortune. And so he started recruiting mercenaries. And he put together, again, some of the best of the best. The Crescent Hawks, the Black Widow Company, a group of former Sword of Light Kuritas called the Ronin. You have all these elites, these best of the best, that he's hired, as well as his own personally maintained mercenary unit, Camachos Caballeros. Weren't his own, but they were under a long-term contract with him. Personally. Not the Combine. And so, you have all these units. And they're fighting various skirmishes. And then he gets a lead on something. An important Word of Blake facility in Steiner Space. And he sends his people there. And this is a massive battle. Because it's being fought for a secret shipyard. And eventually they win. But for the first time, they see these new units. Oh yeah, they have the Word of Blake broadsword on them, but they start black at the feet, fade to a white or light gray. And these mechs move with a grace and precision you just can't get out of a normal mech. This is the first public experience with the Mene Domine. As this happens, as this battle is going on, the Mene Domine begin appearing in force around other capital worlds. New Avalon, Luthien, Cyan, Atreus. Because at this point, the Word of Blake, they're no longer holding back. This is the step where it goes from a covert war to overt. And as the Inner Sphere looks to Uncle Chandy for leadership, because he started the coalition, he's assassinated. And this is when the thing that the Word of Blake did moves into the overt stages. And that's what I will be talking about next week. Until then, I'd like you all to remember, have fun, and keep gaming.